2 years ago, I looked up Galerians on the cutting room floor wiki, and I was disappointed to see that the article was pretty short, just some debug text and a few placeholder images. I thought to myself, surely there's more cool stuff to be found in this game. So I started digging into it, hoping to find some interesting cut content. And I did. There are unused models, unused items, developer images, all sorts of fun stuff. But a lot of it hinted at an earlier version of the game with even more differences, and I knew if I wanted to find the really good stuff, I had to hope for a demo version. Now, it's easy enough to find that there were demos released in the West, and Hidden Palace has a couple prototype versions of the English localization, but all of these date from after the Japanese release, and they're basically just unfinished translations of that version. I had done some basic searches for a Japanese demo and didn't find anything, so I had started to assume there wasn't one. But recently, I discovered that there is, and it's called ASCII Zanmai. ASCII Zanmai is a demo disc released in August of 1998 with demos of 4 games published by ASCII Entertainment: Kase Monogatari, True Love Story 2, Wizardry Dimgul, and the hero of our story, Galerians. I thought this was cool because we've got this early version of the logo with the vial for the eye. As far as I know, this logo wasn't used for any of the release material. By the way, I am interested in checking out the other demos on here, but I'd like to play the release versions of those games first so I can spot the differences. I also don't expect they'll have as many differences as the Galerians demo does. Galerians was released in Japan in August 1999, which is a full year after this disc was released. But we can see here these other games were scheduled for release later in 1998, which is just a few months after the demos. Now let's open this thing up. Not too much going on with the disc itself, so let's check out the manual. There's one page in the back for Galerians. We've got the logo, Rion in the background, and a brief description of the scenario. Who am I? Who is the girl calling for help? The rest of it is just describing the controls. I think it's interesting that in the list of powers they have Melotropin listed next to Nalcon in red, like they're the same type of thing. Maybe at one point it was an actual selectable power. But that's pretty much it for the packaging, so let's get into the demo. You'll probably get more out of this video if you've played the game before, but I'll try to describe what the differences are for those who aren't familiar. So we start out with logos and disclaimers, and then we're greeted by this slappin' tune. Step aside, release me, I wanna be free. This is the perfect song to get us ready to play a game about children being medically experimented on. If we select Galerians, we can see we've got 3 options. The first one starts the demo, so let's check out the other 2 first. The first option shows a little description of the game and the story. It's basically the same info that was in the manual. If we back out and go to the other one, first it shows us the in-game controls, which is also the same info from the manual. But if we advance, there's a second screen here with a sneak peek of the menus, and look at that! They're totally different from the final game. Alright, let's start the demo and see this stuff in action. The startup sequence is a little different here, including the Polygon Magic logo. ASCII. Instead of Rion, the main menu has a shot of the goddess statue. There's nothing to do here but press start, which launches us directly into the game. As usual, the game starts with an FMV. The opening shot in the city isn't here, but otherwise this is identical to the release version's opening. In fact, with one exception, all the FMVs are identical, so I'll be skipping most of them, and that's going to take us to this unique intro cutscene. Alright, we're finally in control of Rion. We'll start by scanning the PPEC storage cabinet, and we can see the spot where we get the key is completely different. It actually looks like the test lab on the 13th floor. There's no scan for the back door, so let's run over and pick up the medical staff notes. It's pretty much the same as what we get in the final game, just without all the stuff that's not in the demo. Before we leave, there's some Nalcon in whatever this thing is, so let's grab that and get out of here. Now it's time for the fun stuff. Nalcon in the demo is totally different. You still hold R1 to charge up, although Rion takes a different stance. But instead of releasing one attack where the damage depends on how full the meter was, each blast does the same amount of damage and consumes a certain amount of charge. So the charge is kind of like your ammo, and you can rapid fire multiple shots until your charge runs out. It's actually pretty fun. After you fire the first blast though, the meter starts to drain, so you can't knock them down and then just hold it while you wait for them to get back up. You have to charge it again. Speaking of knocking them down, that's actually what I think is the one small downside, at least in these early fights. In the final game, you can kill a doctor with one fully charged Nalcon blast, but here you'll always knock them down before you use all your charge, and then you have to wait for them to get back up. Now that I've used some of my Nalcon, let's take a look at the drug menu. The demo gives us the BJEC from the start. We can see that flashing on the left. At the top we've got 8 slots to hold drug vials, and below that we can see our Nalcon, red, and HP levels. You probably already noticed that the HUD only shows the charge meter. Unfortunately, this menu is the only place to see your health. Now using these items is interesting too, because unlike the pills and stuff in the final game, these are not single-use consumables. Your HP and power levels go up to 200, and each vial up here can hold up to 200 of a particular drug. So if I choose the Nalcon and press square, it'll start pulling from the Nalcon vial and refilling my Nalcon power. If I press square again, it'll stop. Or I can hold R1 and press square, and it'll instantly drain enough to completely refill my power, assuming there is enough. I assumed that the plan was to have the liquid level in the vial go up and down based on how full it was, but that's not implemented in the demo, which is unfortunate because it means you have no way to tell how much you have left. One thing that's conspicuously absent from this screen is an AP meter. In fact, the entire shorting mechanic does not exist. Kinda crazy given how it ended up being the game's most iconic feature. Back in the game, we'll just head over here to pick up the security card, and it's not here. Turns out, it's actually on the doctor. That's a common theme in this demo. A lot of keys that you pick up from the world in the final game are found on defeated enemies instead. It really changes the pacing, because in the release version, you really don't have to fight anyone in Stage A. Now that we've got an item, let's check out the item menu. It's just a big grid, but it's nice that you could see all your items at once. If you click on an item, it brings up this menu. Use and cancel are pretty self-explanatory. The swap option is new. It lets you move your inventory around by swapping the position of different items. Honestly, it seems kind of useless given that most key items disappear after you use them. One thing I think is interesting is that we've got these 2 dark boxes in front of the inventory. The one on the right has the options in it, but the one on the left is empty. It sure seems to me like something was supposed to go there. My theory, which could be wrong, is that they were going to show the item's 3D model here. You know how when you pick up a key item it shows the spinning 3D model, but when you pick up a file it just shows the contents of the file? Well, actually, files have 3D models too, even in the release version, you just never see them. If they already knew by this point that they weren't going to show those when you picked them up, why did they keep making more? Maybe it's because they were going to show them here. Now, the hole in this theory is that even though I already picked up the medical staff notes, you can clearly see that they are not in my inventory. But I haven't seen any evidence of a separate menu for files, so it could just be that they hadn't finished implementing them. Alright, let's get back to the game. The corner is a little darker in this first camera angle, but other than that, this hallway is basically the same. We use the security card to open the gate. If we scan it first, we can see this unique image showing it in the doctor's pocket. Then we get the FMV with the guards and head into the security room. The freezer room key is on the guard instead of hanging on the wall, so we have to fight this guy to get it. We still open the door outside with the switch over here, and there's still an FMV on the mirror. We'll also stop by the supply closet. It looks a little different, which is cool. There's no B-ject, which I guess makes sense since we apparently already have it. There's nothing else to do in here, so let's just keep moving. There are 2 guards in the next hall. Guards are actually pretty tough in this demo when they group up. You really can't get away from them once they're on you because they run much faster than they do in the release version. You've only got time to charge up 1 or 2 Nalcon shots, which isn't enough to knock one down, and by that point the others are already getting ready to whack you. That makes this the perfect place to show off red. You can change powers by selecting them from the drug menu or by using L2 and R2. You don't auto-aim when you start charging, but you can press L1 to quickly face the nearest enemy. The first thing you'll probably notice is that the enemy starts smoking as soon as you target them, which is fun. But actually, the whole time they're in this smoking state, their movement speed is significantly reduced. Check out this comparison. With Nalcon, I can't charge up enough shots to knock him down before he gets to me, so I have to run away, giving the other guard time to catch up. With Red, the slow effect gives me plenty of time to charge up a full blast and incinerate him, letting me take on the other guard one-on-one. It's a really neat mechanic that I didn't notice on my first playthrough, and it's a great counter for this enemy. Now that we've got some peace and quiet, we can take a look at this room. The layout is the same, but the background is very different. In general, the entire hospital in this version, especially hallways, looks like this, with the same gray walls and rectangular doors. It's more consistent and maybe more realistic, but I would argue also less visually interesting than what we ended up getting. I think they made the right call mixing up the design. The first door on the left is what we would expect to lead to the special PPEC office. It's locked and the message says we need the special PPEC office key. We can't scan it, and unfortunately there's no way to enter this door in the demo. The rest of the hallway functions as we'd expect. The save room is here, but saving is disabled for the demo, so we can't do anything here. The bathroom looks slightly different. It doesn't have the tiled walls and floors. We can also see that reflections haven't been implemented yet. There's some Nalcon on the sink, so let's grab that and continue to the next hall. This hall also has the same design as the ones we've already been to instead of the unique design it has in the final game. Fun fact, you can use the security card on this door, but it doesn't do anything. I guess it must have been locked at some point. Now this is the stuff I was hoping for in this demo. This room is completely different. It looks a lot like the test lab, which explains what we saw when we scanned the PPEC storage cabinet earlier, because that key is on this doctor here. I think most people will agree that the final version of this room is cooler, but it's still really cool to see such a different vision for it. Aside from the chair in the middle, there's also this ominous blood-stained bed in the corner. The shelves in the back have some Nalcon, the last to be found in the demo. As expected, the door over here leads to the tiny room with the chair. The code on the wall is the same, and you get the same FMV from the chair. Now we need to grab the fuse from the freezer room. I'll scan the door first so you can see this unique image showing it on the guard's belt instead of the wall where you normally get it. This room looks pretty much the same, but there's no trap when you grab the fuse, so you can just walk right out if you want to. The rest of the demo proceeds pretty much the same as the release version. The fuse gets us through the back door of the starting room, we unlock the PPEC storage cabinet and grab the liquid explosive, splash it on the shutter, and scan it. I'll let this FMV play since it's the only one that has any differences. The background is different to match the background of the demo's version of this room. And with that, we've reached the to be continued screen. There were some neat differences and stuff I'd never seen before, but it looks like our journey through the demo is at an end. Or is it? Because in fact, dear viewer, not only is the rest of Stage A still on the disc, but so are Stages B and C, in varying levels of completion. And with liberal application of hacks, we can explore them for ourselves. Before we head downstairs, though, we should look at some of the stuff the demo was hiding from us in the areas we've already seen, and we'll start with the medical staff notes. Nothing too crazy here. We've got Nalcon, then Red. Wait. Platon? Platon? What the hell is Platon? What the hell is Maggie? Yes, it turns out there's not just one power we don't get in the demo, there are two. Obviously we have to see what's up with those, so let's head back to the drug menu. There are 7 drug items in the game. I've given us one of each. We'll focus on the powers first. The first 2 are Nalcon and Red, no surprise there. But the next 2 are our mystery abilities, so let's check them out. Now we can see what those 2 unused meters were for. If we back out and use L2 and R2, we can now cycle through our full suite of abilities. Let's get the boring one out of the way first. Maggie is just D-Felon. The description is basically identical, and Rion uses the same stance for it. They just changed the name. The really interesting one is Platon, so let's go try it out. And, well, I've got some bad news. It doesn't work. It's definitely funny to stunlock enemies with full auto Nalcon blast, but I'm almost certain that this is not what this power was supposed to do, especially considering that Maggie has the same effect. I don't think this is even doing any damage. I looked through the code, and in addition to the Nalcon and Red effect, I did find a third seemingly unused effect. It causes the enemy to freeze in place. That's kinda cool, but I'm honestly not sure if that's what it's supposed to do or if it's just not finished. It doesn't seem that useful since the effect ends as soon as you stop charging. Well, since the power doesn't work in-game, our only clue for how it was supposed to work is the medical staff notes. Apparently, it scans the brain's thought circuits at high speed, and the circuit will short out if it can't withstand it anymore. That sounds a lot like the final game shorting effect. Maybe this power was supposed to be an active version of that? Maybe the enemy freezing in place was supposed to be them cowering while you're charging it and then you fire the attack to explode their head. That's just speculation, but it's fun to imagine how it would have worked. Let's move on to the other items. The next one is Skip. Instead of just a 1, 2, 3 level, Skip is also a meter that goes up to 200. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be used, but it seems reasonable to assume that it would have modified your attack power based on how full the meter was. Let's skip to the last one real quick. This is Health. Apparently it's called Recovery Agent, which is the same name used in the Japanese release version. It doesn't say anything about it being a capsule like the localization. That leaves us with this purple one, which seems to be Delmator. You're probably thinking, what use is Delmator if the game doesn't have shorting? Well, even though you can't short, you actually do have an AP level. This feature either wasn't finished yet or was removed for the demo because nothing seems to increase it, but the effect it has is to reduce your maximum health. Let's go over here and get beat up a little bit to reduce our health. Now I'm going to manually fill our AP to 50% in the debugger. That fills in our HP with purple from the right. If I try to heal, you can see I can't heal past 50%. But now let me use the Delmator. That shrinks the purple section of our HP. Once it gets to 0, I'll heal again, and now I can fully restore my health. With the drugs out of the way, let's keep exploring. There are several triggers throughout the demo area that were disabled for the purposes of the demo. Unfortunately, most of them have had their code completely removed, so we can only see where they were, not what they were supposed to do. We'll start with this locked door. You may remember that earlier it said we needed the special PPEC office key. Seems pretty straightforward, that's the same as the final game. But actually, this door has been a huge mystery for me. The thing is, it's not entirely clear if that key is actually in the game. Plus, there's a leftover disabled trigger for unlocking the door which says you use the security card. And to me, this thing to the left of the door looks like a card reader. Of course, that thing is in the final game too, even though you unlock it with a key. It's possible we're seeing a transitional state where they used to have it unlock with the card, but had recently decided to make it a key. The part of the trigger that checks the item has been removed, so we can't see which item it was actually looking for. So, which one do we go with? The key or the card? Let's look at the available items and see what our options are. These are the inventory icons for every item in the demo in Stage A. A lot of these icons are placeholders, so let's fill it in with icons from the final game where we can. All of the keys with icons are used elsewhere. So could one of the placeholders be a key? There is an unused key model in the files, but it doesn't look anything like the final game's special PPEC office key. This first placeholder here seems to be an item called life support data. It's not implemented, but I'm guessing it was a file like Rion's test data. This second one here is interesting, but it's not a key. I'll circle back to that one later. If one of these items is a key, it could really only be one of these two. But which one? Both the model and inventory labels attached to these items are placeholders, so those don't tell us anything. I haven't found any code that references them, so we can't get any context clues that way either. That just leaves us with the text on the icons. My Japanese knowledge is pretty minimal, so I'm getting out of my depth here, but I'm gonna do my best to interpret these. This first icon clearly starts with the hiragana character ha. The Japanese name for the special PPEC office key is
特殊役務局の鍵
which doesn't have a ha anywhere, so that doesn't seem like it. However, there is one other unused item mentioned in the game's messages.
発電機
which apparently means generator. That does start with ha, and I could kind of believe that these squiggles here are an ugly tsu and de, so I think it's plausible that this is the generator. That leaves us with this guy. To me, this looks like two kanji. I'm trying to see how these match to any of the characters in the item name, and I just don't see it. But then again, we've only got one more unknown icon and one more unused item name, so what else could it be? Let's talk about the security card option. The most obvious choice would be the security card we already have. The other item with the same icon is just the reformatted version of that card. But if you unlock the door with an item you get in the demo, why would they disable it for the demo? A more interesting option is this red card here. It's not used anywhere, but it's fully implemented. It has an inventory label, which is also just security card, and a unique 3D model. I've chosen to restore this door using the red security card. I want to show off cut content, and the key and the other security card both exist in the final game. Plus, there's strong evidence that there was some other key item obtained on this floor. It starts with this unused scan image showing the doctor at the computers in the hall before the security card gate. That's a clear indication that you needed something there to unlock something. I actually like that this was in the game because it gives you a reason to unlock the gate with this switch here. In the final game, there's really no need to do this, because the only time you need to come back to this area, you go in the back door with the fuse. But the scan image shows the doctor at the computers, so where was the item? On the doctor or on the computers? Well, annoyingly, there are triggers on both. That makes it hard to say for sure. But I decided to put the card on the computers because, as we'll see here, it's got its own special camera angle. And here's that unused red security card. I don't think they would have a unique camera angle just to say there's nothing here, so I feel quite confident that you either got an item or used an item here. But then what was the trigger on the doctor for? Well, I just put a message on him that says nothing. I think it's plausible that they said, hey, the doctor's in the scan image, what if the player tries checking the doctor? That's really just a guess though. Okay, so we can probably say that there was an item on the computers. Do we know it was this card? Not at all. Let's take another look at the item list to see what it could be. There are 6 unused items. I don't think there would be a scan image for a file, so I don't expect we got the life support data here. Don't worry about this second one yet. I'm gonna get to it, I promise. Next is what might be the generator. I guess it could make sense to get a generator out of an electronic device, but Do they not have power outlets in the 26th century? Those computers are huge, it's not like they're portable. And I don't see any hatches or openings where you would extract something the size of a generator. What about the next one? If this is the key, it doesn't make sense to me that you would get a physical key out of a computer. I'm gonna rule this one out. Next is the red security card. A card slot in a computer seems very plausible to me, which is why I decided to put it here. And lastly, we have this disk. This is most likely called the materials disk. To be honest, getting a disk from a computer or using a disk on a computer sounds even more likely than the security card. But I don't know what you would be supposed to do with this disk. In fact, there's not even a message for using it, only for picking it up. So there you have it, the great mystery of the demo. I'm not gonna lie, I'm unsatisfied. Is that one item the special PPEC office key? What was on the doctor? What item did you get from the computers and what did it unlock? Frankly, I'm pretty sure the sequence I've reconstructed here is not how it actually worked, but I just don't know any of the answers for sure. This stuff keeps me up at night, man. Let's just open the damn door. Hey, this isn't the special PPEC office at all. It's the G Project report room. Apparently, at this point in development, the locations of these rooms were swapped. We'll take out these doctors and then have a look around. On the table here, there's a heal. This is the only health item in the game, so use it wisely. Before we move on, there are a few things to note here. You may be wondering why we're getting the full 3D model item pickup screen for medicine when we didn't for Nalcon. Those Nalcon pickups in the playable area of the demo aren't using the normal medicine pickup code, but med pickups outside of the demo area do show this screen just like key item pickups. The next thing I want to point out is this model. This is the model for the G Project report, which the game uses as the placeholder for every item that doesn't have its own model. It's not just because we're in this room. Lastly, the message at the bottom actually says we picked up melotropin. Most of the text for medicine pickups doesn't match the item you're actually picking up, so I'm pretty sure this is just a placeholder and not evidence that melotropin was used to heal. Moving on, we can see that the door in the back isn't here. Instead of getting the G Project report from the big screen at the front of the room, we get it from the podium here. This pickup was coded as a regular item, but the file contents are in the game, so I patched it to treat it as a file so we can see them. The last thing I want to cover on this floor is the remaining disabled triggers. I already showed you the ones in the hall where I added the red security card, but there are several others. There are two in the supply closet. This one was obviously the B-ject. The other one over here could have been a med pickup. However, there's a more interesting option that I think could have fit here, and it's that last remaining unknown item I haven't talked about yet. This placeholder icon says pill case. Apparently, just like you need the B-ject to refill your powers in the final game, it was planned to require the pill case item in order to pick up pills. There's an unused message string that says something along the lines of, "You don't have a pill case, you can't pick it up." Now, the one thing that's odd about this is, there are no pills in this game. All the med pickups appear as vials on the drug menu, and that B-ject icon is right there, so it sure seems like they were used with the B-ject. Did they cut pills and then add them back, or had they just recently decided to switch to pills and hadn't updated the drug menu yet? There's no telling. By the way, this item has a placeholder model, but there are two unused models that are likely candidates to have been the pill case. I think this first one was almost certainly it. It looks like a small case that you could put something like pills in, and it's got a little button on the top to open it. I thought this green box was interesting too, though. The different compartments make me wonder if this was for storing drug vials. Of course, it has 10 compartments, whereas the drug menu only has 8, so who knows. So that's it for unused items. We've got a few more triggers in this room. There are 2 on this chair. There's also an unused trigger on this table here. Unfortunately, all three have been completely gutted, so there's no way to tell what they did. We've also got one in the freezer room. In the final game, there's Nalcon here. There's Nalcon in the demo as well, so I don't know why they would feel the need to remove this. Maybe they just thought it was overkill given how short the demo is. And lastly, there's the trigger on the stairs down to the 14th floor. Even after bypassing the to be continued screen, you can't go downstairs because the trigger is disabled. That's simple enough to patch, so let's head down. In the next one. Yeah, I didn't plan to make this a two-parter, but this video has gotten pretty long, and it's taken me a lot longer to make than I expected. There's still a lot more never-before-seen stuff from this point, so keep an eye out for part 2. I'll try not to take 2 months to get it out. Until next time.